Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OwlScoop.com. You already know.
In this special bonus edition of The Scoop here at OwlScoop.com, I'm thrilled to have former Temple head coach Geoff Collins on the pod. Geoff, how you doing?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me on.
Good to hear you. Good to see your face. Got some Temple gear on.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for making time for this, man. I really, really appreciate it. So
yeah, I went to 10th and Diamond a week ago.
Yeah.
Today, and Casey was awesome. They gave me a huge bag of gear, and I will wear it with pride.
Yeah, I mean, let's jump right in with that because people who follow you on social media have seen that you've been on a tour where you're going around to the places where you've coached. You're taking a year off after being a defensive assistant at South Carolina last year. I saw you were on another podcast recently, and you shared the story about when you were the DC at Florida back in 2016, and Steve Sarkisian shows up. He had just gotten let go from USC, and he was traveling around doing what you're doing now. And before you know it, he's sitting in during one of your defensive meetings there. And I think you said in that podcast, I was kind of jealous of him. You got the idea from him. Talk to us about that and how that came about.
Yeah, so I just that happened, and the ability to go around and have access to teams during preseason camp doesn't happen, very often. But I'm blessed with the relationships that I have and the people that I know, that it was everywhere I wanted to go. It was open arms. It was team meetings, sometimes staff meetings, position meetings. Then on the field, watching practice, I talked to some teams, talked to some defensive units, some recruiting personnel departments. They would have me talk to their staff. So it was a great experience because since I left Temple, just there's been so much that's changed in the world, so much that's changed in the game, and just to go and have this experience to places that I've not been in forever. Like I went to Starkville, Mississippi, and John, the last time I was in Starkville, Mississippi was when the Florida Gators private plane came to pick me up.
Wow.
And I've not been back. And
Yeah.
so just to go back there was awesome. And then to be on 10th and Diamond last week, I intentionally made that trip the last one because, I consider myself a fairly tough guy, but I knew that trip was going to bring back a whole host of emotions. And I didn't want to start the trip bombarded with those kind of memories and emotions. I'm glad that I did it, and I'm glad that I experienced it and downloaded it. But I had to save the best for last.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, you just said it, you were at Temple last week, and I think a lot of people noticed that the Temple content was even more plentiful than what we saw from some of the other stops. And I think anyone following would be like, damn, this guy really, really misses this place. And so we've been texting back and forth over the last week and kind of catching up. And when I was talking to you about just setting up today, and you said in a text, I could talk about Temple all day long, best 2 years of my life, and my biggest regret was leaving. So I think hearing that, fans would be like, wow, even though I knew, during your time, I knew your time at Temple meant a lot to you. And even though people in this business who cover the game, they cover coaching searches, they know and understand why people move on. But that's still a pretty raw and honest admission on your part. Not every coach would say that or is like that. What made leaving Temple, when you think about it now, your biggest regret? What makes you say that? Because I think that will catch fans' attention here.
So the interesting part, and you, John DiCarlo, are the first person outside of my wife that I've told this story to. So the night before I interviewed for the Georgia Tech job, and it's no secret that was my hometown, and going back home to Atlanta. And, when I started this coaching journey, that was, a school that I aspired to going back to one day as a head coach. All of those things happened. Well, the night before I did the formal interview for the Georgia Tech job, we were at the National Football Foundation dinner in New York City. It was me, my beautiful wife, Jennifer, Pat Kraft, Betsy were there, Bruce Arians, Paul Palmer, because he was getting inducted. And I still remember at some point during the evening, it had kind of gotten, I think Paul had already been, honored, deservedly so. And there was a quiet moment, and Bruce Arians is sitting to my left. I'll never forget it. People at the table were talking, and he grabbed me by the hand and kind of pulled me in. And he whispered to me, he was like, Geoff, don't take that job.
Oh, wow.
Do not go and leave Temple. You've got everything that you want there. You've got a great roster. You've got a great program. You've got a great culture. Looking over at Pat Kraft, you have a great AD, and that job is going to be so hard.
Mm,
That job is not set up for immediate success.
mm.
And he was like, you've got everything you need. My time at Temple was special. And I got to imagine, from listening to you talk all evening, and Bruce had come and spoke at some of my coaching clinics on 10th and Diamond. I know how you feel about the place, Bruce said. Do not take that job. Do not leave. And I can still feel his hand holding mine, imparting those words of wisdom. And, there's a lot of things that people try to tell you, and a lot of times they're right, and sometimes you listen, sometimes you don't. And, that's one of those moments.
So what was that like in that moment? Because again, at the end of the day, and I'll probably bring this up to you a couple times, like fans can say, oh, coaches should stay, they leave. What do I care? They're getting paid millions of dollars, but you're still a
Sure.
human being. So when Bruce says that to you, are you the type of guy where you're like, oh man, like that is some heavy stuff? Or were you kind of like, I really love him, I appreciate him, but I can't not take this job?
And John, I've not. I think this road trip that I just went on was very healing for me. Like I
Hmm.
got to process a lot of emotions. I think I put almost 4,000 miles on the car,
Hmm.
driving to all these places, and so I would process the entirety of my journey that I went on.
Hmm.
And until midnight, the night that we accepted the job, there were. I mean, that process was like 3 to 4 days
Yeah.
that it was painstaking. There were times that even before I made the call that I was going to take it, there were two times within that same 30-minute window that I was calling to turn the job down.
Oh, wow.
And I still remember, and again, I've never shared this story. So I was on a recruiting trip in Tampa when I got offered the job.
Hmm.
And my agent was like, the numbers aren't what the numbers need to be, especially for this kind of transition. And a part of me was just so relieved. Like
Mm.
this technicality or whatever is going to make it as so that I can do what my heart is telling me that I should do. Get on the plane. There's no Wi-Fi on the plane. So I am off grid for the 2 hour flight from Tampa to Philly.
Alone with
And
your
I'm
thoughts.
sitting with, huh?
Alone with your thoughts.
That sucked.
Hmm.
And again, I'm a grown man. I try to be tough and all those things, but I don't know for 2 hours if I didn't sit there in tears for 2 hours. Like I
Mm.
still remember the dude next to me was like, "What the hell is wrong with this dude?" I mean, I'm
Yeah.
decked out in Temple gear, and I'm like in my feelings because my daughter took her first steps in our home in Philly. It was our first head coaching job.
Hmm.
The kind of players we had at Temple.
Yeah.
They're the best of the best. And
Hmm.
the coaching staff and the culture and all of those things, I knew I wasn't ready to give it up.
Hmm.
And then I landed, and then the phone call from the agent with the money and the years and the things that needed to happen for me to be able to entertain it. And it was literally the toughest decision I've ever had to make.
Wow. I mean, I think it's interesting again, just hearing that perspective, because I covered Al Golden, covered Matt, and you guys, I'm wondering if you ever like talk about this because obviously, Matt went on, had success at Baylor,
Sure.
went to the NFL, it didn't work out.
Yep.
You went to Georgia Tech, it didn't work out. Al went to Miami, it didn't work out. Now he's in the NFL, but I'm always curious if you guys talk about that stuff because I think a lot of their past coaches experience what you're experiencing. I think so many guys who come through, they know the deal. You can get a lot done at Temple, and then they're like, oh, it's a special place. Al sparked the turnaround. And then I think sometimes coaches think, man, if all jobs and all conferences and salaries were equal, maybe Al doesn't leave for a while, or maybe Matt
Right.
stays a little bit longer. Maybe you don't leave. But when a Power Four program comes along and can more than double your salary, in your case, you go home, it's hard not to leave. What's that push and pull? It almost sounds like you're looking back. It's almost like an ex-girlfriend that you broke up with and say, oh man, I guess that's the one that got away. That's what it sounds like. And I think
Right.
sometimes fans don't understand the human side of it. Is that almost kind of how it feels?
100%. Like it. I mean, it's heartbreaking to have gone through it, and I still remember. I went into Edward, the EO facility to say goodbye to the team. And I tried to go. So what a lot of people do, well, a lot of people just send a text or an
Send a
email and just
text, yeah,
say for somebody else to handle it, right? Or let it release on social media.
which never comes across well.
No. Then what some people do are have team meetings, drop the mic, see ya, and then they leave that team meeting.
Hmm.
Well, we were in the middle of bowl prep,
Yeah.
and so I had every single position were in their meeting rooms. And I thought it was going to be hard no matter how I did it. But I wanted to go into each position meeting room. So it'd be 5 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 12 receivers. And I could kind of look everybody in the eye and tell them news that was devastating to me. And there's certain, I won't name their names, but faces and reactions that haunt me to this day
Hmm.
because they're people that I genuinely love and care about, and still to this day. And we have come a long way from that moment, but just seeing people that you know really matter to you, and they impacted me as much as I impacted them. It heartbreaking and hard.
How long, Jeff? I'm curious. Like, once you get down to Georgia Tech and you're hit with the seriousness of, again, it's not like you were, again, great program, but you know how much you had to, I mean, you were changing the offense, changing the defense. It's hard to compete down there, even though the facilities are good. How
Eh,
long? How,
eh,
well, okay.
okay.
Well, maybe I'm assuming that they're
So I,
like
I
that.
assume
Yeah.
that this by no means I want this to be pro Temple. I don't want it to be anti Georgia Tech.
Right.
But when I left in 2006,
Hmm.
my assumption was there's been a lot of upgrades and there's
Hmm.
been keeping up with the times. There had not been.
Oh, okay.
So, but again, I don't want to bash that place or any of those
Yeah.
things, but just it was very tough, not discounting COVID and a super senior fest and then the portal, and
Mm-hmm.
Jahmyr Gibbs hops in the portal and God bless him. I'm not mad at
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then two, and I was having
I
this
forgot about
conversation.
that. I forgot about that.
Oh, I haven't. I've not. Um,
There's a guy I'm taking number one in my fantasy football draft
a
in a couple
million percent.
weekends. Yeah.
And so he was in our first signing class.
Yeah.
So Jahmyr Gibbs, and then
Mm.
Kyle Kennard ended up being the Bronco Nagurski Defensive Player of the Year in college football. He was in that same class.
Yeah.
Well, before they were freshmen, the world got COVID,
Yeah.
and so you've been around, the way we run our program
Yeah.
and the team meetings and the culture building and all those things. For 2 years, that did not happen. So our second and third year, so Jameer's first year and Jameer's second year, we weren't allowed to have team meetings. And so just that whole thing, just impacted everything. But it is what it is. And I guess that's why you have agents and
Mhm.
contracts and whatever.
So I'm assuming that when you took the Georgia Tech job, you took it sight unseen. You had seen it before, but is that stuff getting done like you said? I remember Al Golden telling me along these lines, and I don't think Al will care that I'm sharing this, but before Al left Temple from Miami, I think he got offered by Pitt.
Right.
And I said, "What's it like as a human being?" I said, "Look, I like you. I care about you as a human being. I'll miss you. Looking forward to staying in touch. But how do you do it as a human? I know that you're going to get more money." He was like, "You just have to literally lock in and keep doing your job and until there's no longer your job." So you're doing that in recruiting. Did you had taken the Georgia Tech job without going down and meeting with them down there, and you just assumed the facilities had been upgraded?
Yep. And then compounding, I told this a couple weeks ago, compounding it. So nowadays, when a coach gets fired, it's 6, 7 weeks before the last game. So there's going to be a turnaround. Then, or it's right after the season, there's going to be a change. Well, in the case when we went down there, it didn't happen until a week before the first signing day.
Yeah.
And the signing class that we had at Temple was ridiculous,
Hmm.
right? And then I go down there, and the signing class that was put together was, still a triple option based.
Yeah.
I think maybe the bottom 15% in college football recruiting class rankings. So we didn't have time to do that. And this is pre-portal. Like nowadays, like the same thing Kurt Signetti did at Indiana and did a great job. Well, he takes, 13 of his starters with him. Some places take 22 of their
Yeah.
players, and I don't know how many of the guys would have come with us, but if the portal existed then, and Sean Bradley and some of those other guys, came, it would have been a different story. But I still don't want to discount that Temple is a special place, and the players that are developed and produced at that place in North Philly, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so just the experience of what that place is as an entity, as a university, and the tradition and the grit and the toughness, it's hard to replicate that really at most places. I spent almost a week at Syracuse last week,
Yeah.
and I saw remnants of that. And I don't know if it's just the Northeast mentality and toughness and grit, or if it's Fran had been through that program as well, and what the components are. But I don't want to discount that 10th and Diamond is a special place.
I mean, it sounds like it went well, but how did Casey and the staff at Temple take you in when you
Amazing.
went there?
They were great. So the D-line coach, he and I coached together at FIU back in the day, won a ring together.
Yeah.
So he and I are super close. One of my Georgia Tech players, who is a Philadelphia native, Kenny Bennett,
Yeah.
is on the staff. So it was great to see him. Miss Nady is still there. Rich Berg came down. Gerson came over to see.
Yeah.
But I think I've been so impressed with how Casey has run the program since he's gotten there, how he's embraced all the traditions. I mean, he even brought cheesesteaks with Coach back for a little bit. The single digit and the importance of it, not just giving it lip service and something that you have to do. I'm not saying that anybody else did that,
Yeah.
but he is upholding all the traditions and the things that make Temple special. You can feel that he buys into it. The players buy into it. What's the tight end's name from London?
Peter Clark.
Peter Clark. So
Yeah.
I met him. He was phenomenal. So I just couldn't think of his name,
Yeah.
but he told me that. So I did a show, and I went on a riff about single digits and how if I see a single digit in a Temple jersey playing football, you don't have to tell me anything else about that kid. I know everything about that kid that I need to know. And that clip, Peter said that he put on the Temple group text. And that meant a lot to me, that those kind of things, the shared stories of the Tyler Matakeviches and Hassan Reddicks, Keith Kirkwoods, and on and on and on, are still living and breathing, in that facility and in that program.
Jeff, before we come back around to talking about stuff later in your career, where you are right now in North Carolina with your wife Jennifer and your daughter Astrid, I want to go back to how you got to Temple. So Matt Rule leaves Baylor.
Yep.
Leaves for Baylor. You and Matt had obviously worked together twice at Albright and at Western Carolina. You guys are friends.
Yep.
Tell me about how much you're willing to share, how you got into the mix to eventually replace him, because another set of circumstances, I think you were in the mix for the UCF job in 2015.
Yep.
Do I have that
mean,
right?
It was the trajectory of an SEC coordinator. When you're playing good football, you get put on all of those lists, which is a blessing. But let me take you back, and I don't know how much Matt has told this story, but I still remember. So Matt and I were together at Western Carolina. I left Western to go to Georgia Tech as the director of player personnel. Al Golden gets the Temple job. And Matt obviously, was a walk-on, but played on the same teams as Al.
Yeah.
So Al gets the Temple job. Matt is back home visiting his family for Christmas in State College. And he's like, calling, Miss Nadia, leaving messages, sending resumes. And I'm like, bro, just drive over and camp out in the lobby until Al meets with you.
Yeah.
And he did it. And Al hired him. And so for 10 years, I got to live and breathe that program through Matt. So I was, he and I would talk once a week, twice a week, just about things I'm learning as I'm going through my trek through the SEC and with Saban and all those things. And then he's sharing with me things that are happening at Temple. So I'm hearing firsthand all the things, the struggles, the triumphs, the development, all of those things. And then the same thing when he becomes the head coach, I'm one of his biggest sounding boards proudly. And so I'm helping him through and things that we're doing at Florida, things that we're doing under Mullen at Mississippi State. And so I'm learning about the single digits. I'm watching all the games. When Notre Dame, when, Matt beat Penn State and then Notre Dame comes to town,
Mm-hmm.
we had an unexpected bye week because of a hurricane that came through. So we didn't have a game. I got to experience that entire day, college game day in Philly, Notre Dame under the lights, toe to toe, and just so for 10 years, I fell in love with the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then Matt leaves. And then Sean Padden and I are super close. So, me, Matt Rule, Sean Padden were the defensive staff at Albright College in 1998.
Yeah.
So we're all super close. And then they had, said, hey, you might want to look at this guy, talking about me,
Mm-hmm.
the DC at Florida. And then me and Pat got on the phone and hit it off. And I got in a wreck during one of our on the phone interviews. And I think Pat liked that,
But you got
And
into a literal car accident when you were on the phone with them?
coach, I'm driving. So I'm a recruiting trip in Orlando and I'm on the phone. It was the second phone interview. So the first one was just, buddy, whatever, getting to know each other, laughs and giggles, whatever. Then the second phone interview was, we're really talking ball. And you've been around me when I've been doing ball.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of
You got black
black
out.
out a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I just ran into another car. So we're on the side of the road on the whatever the median or the whatever that is on the highway,
Yeah.
and I'm still going while the police are coming. Whatever else
Wow.
has to happen, calling insurance, but I'm still on the phone with Dr. Pat Kraft about the Temple job because I was that excited about it. Then I came up for the in-person interview, and I went first on the day. I think there was like 5, 6, 7 more group interviews. After the interview, they kidnapped me. So I was supposed to fly back to Gainesville to get ready for the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you're not leaving. You're going to go meet with the president. And Drew Katz basically was my driver around the entire day. And I got to know Drew and meet the president. And then once they got done with all the other interviews, Pat offered me the job and let's go.
That's amazing. I hope you, so I guess that's why you get car insurance, right? You like
I
have
guess so. Yep.
now obviously you weren't coming into the job cold because again, you were able to pick Matt's
Yep.
brain. You had so much knowledge. I mean, if you're willing to share, what advice did he give you and how did you take what he gave you and then kind of blend it into just what you wanted to do in terms of just being yourself once you got the job?
Okay. So it's interesting. So during that transition, there's certain coaches that are definitely going to Baylor, certain coaches that want to stay and all those kind of
Right.
things. So the biggest conversations Matt and I had was making sure everybody was taken care of.
Yeah.
And to Matt's credit, he, couldn't take everybody because he's going to a Texas school.
Mm-hmm.
But he loved everybody and knew how great of coaches there were, even though, they weren't going to go, to the Big 12 at the time. And so I went out to bowl practice, watched Chris Wiesahan coach, watched Ed Foley coach. And I'm just like, these are real dudes,
Mm-hmm.
And so those two were probably the biggest translators for me from what had happened under Matt and even now into, what we were doing. So the reason me and Matt are best friends is because philosophically, the way we see the game, the way we like to work, and all those things are mutually aligned. Now, our
Mm-hmm.
personalities might be not always, exactly the same,
Yeah.
but at our core, playing with great effort, playing with toughness, preparing very, every detail, all of those things were the same. And then just I wear tight, short coaching pants. Matt wears baggy Dockers. It's whatever. But the football part
Mm-hmm.
is the same. I wear sleeveless hoodies. Matt wears polos.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, pretty much the same.
You remember what you said to the players in your first meeting with them?
I do know that my first meeting that I think I broke a record for the amount of cuss words. So I don't know what it was, but it was my first time as a head coach speaking to the team. And there's Leon sitting right there in front of me, and Sean Chandler, and all these tough North Philly kids. And I just started, positive cussing, not mean
Yeah,
cussing,
yeah, yeah.
just excited. I'm so excited to be talking to the team. But as the years went on, I refined my message a great deal. But just, that I'm going to love them. I'm going to be there for them. We're going to be tough, physical, all those kind of things.
Hey, everybody, this is OwlScoop.com editor John DiCarlo. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this special bonus episode of The Scoop. I want to remind you all that we have extended the 75% off sale at OwlScoop.com with On3. What does that mean? You can get 1 full year of the best Temple football, basketball, and recruiting coverage for just $29.99 for the entire year. That includes our exclusive one-on-one interviews that we get with Temple's players, coaches, and recruits, and former players and Hall of Famers like Tyler Matakevich and Joe Klecko. It includes our recruiting roundup coverage during the football season, and it also includes daily coverage of spring ball and preseason camp with Casey Keeler's Temple football team, as well as our coverage throughout the season. So go to OwlScoop.com, and near the top of the page, you'll see that green button that says Join Now. You'll get 75% off your first full year of OwlScoop.com coverage. Don't miss it. Let's go through this a bit, and I apologize because I should know this because I was there covering the game. First game as Temple's head coach, you open on the road at Notre Dame, and I remember you saying, it kind of like tongue-in-cheek, like all 3 quarterbacks are going to play. And on that first play, you put 3 quarterbacks out there, and I think it was Logan. Was it Logan, Todd Centeio, and it was
Marchie.
Frank? It was. So it was
It was Logan Marchie.
It was Marchie, Centeio, and who was the third quarterback that you put out there?
It was either Russo or Frankie Juice.
Okay. You always, I wanted to ask you about this too. Like obviously you put a ton of time into the X's and O's, but you put a lot of effort into like being outward facing, promoting the program, whether it was like getting the guys, I think I remember, please correct me if I'm wrong here. If the guys had a high enough GPA, if they're doing well enough, they could get their names on the back of their practice jerseys.
Social media handles.
Yeah, their social media handles. And like, has that always been in you, or did you feel like you had to tailor that for Temple? Because there were some people who were like, this seems gimmicky, but other people were like, it's working. People are seeing it. Is that something that was always part of your personality?
I think so. And then just having to, balance it with Temple tough.
Yeah.
And then having a little showboat to my personality and the branding piece, just trying to navigate that. And I felt like in 2018, I think we hit our sweet spot.
Yeah.
We were still uber creative. We were still having fun, but understanding and respectful of the place that we were at and the players that we had, the toughness, the grit, all those kind of things. I think we just hit a very sweet spot in all of it. And, it's crazy. The things that you see now happening in college football were things that we were doing on 10th and Diamond, 8-9 years ago. And now that's like mainstream. Like I still remember the Star Wars game that we had, and it was Thursday night ESPN. And my pants are a little tighter than most people, and definitely at the time they were. Well, during the game, my pants rode up during the game, and they basically turned into capri pants. Okay,
yeah.
So we won the game. Great Thursday night ESPN college football environment. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So I get to my phone and I had 400 texts, which is, a high number, but it's Thursday night. Cool. People are congrats. Well, 398 of those texts were about, why are my pants so short? Why are my pants so tight? But now, John, I dare you this weekend, especially when NFL comes on, to watch a game and the coaches aren't wearing tight, short sideline attire.
Yeah, they're all wearing that and joggers and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But when I did it 8-9 years ago, what is this guy doing? But
yeah,
we're just ahead of our time, John.
So Geoff, you guys started off that first season. You started off 2-3, lost at Notre Dame. You squeaked by Villanova, then you beat UMass, got beat by USF, and then by Houston. Who were some of the catalysts in getting things turned around that first season? I know, again, Frank Newtile, you obviously took over quarterback. You affectionately dubbed him Frankie Juice.
Yep.
But take people inside what else got things going in the right direction for you guys to get eligible and win the bowl game.
I think credit to the guys that, they stayed consistent. They kept working, kept believing. The relationships that we had within the building helped. I think we won 6 of the last 7, and so that was really special for me. But I think just learning each other and obviously the year before the championship season, a lot of those players were gone. Hassan Reddick's a pretty good player. I'm sure people have noticed. He wasn't there, and Deion Dawkins was a pretty good player. So PJ Walker was a pretty good player, and I'm saying that in jest. They were all 3 of them
Oh yeah.
great players. And so when you lose that kind of talent, it takes a little while to figure out who you are. And me being a first-time coach, I didn't hit all the right, notes, and I was trying to figure it out as well. But to the kids' credit, to the single digits credit, Leon, I think he was a huge part of it because, Leon is a big personality, if you remember,
Yeah.
especially at an offensive lineman. And he was able to stay the course, what made it okay for everybody else to stay the course. And the Keith Kirkwoods of the world, and I could go on and on, were able to do that. And then we won 6 of our last 7 games. And I still remember, so Matt at Baylor, their first year, they were struggling. I think they went 1-11 maybe. So anyway,
Something like that.
so I still remember, so we're going to Tulsa. We win the game, we're bowl eligible. Last game of the season, win the game, we're bowl eligible. And, Matt was going through it. Well, during that week, I told a story about one of mine and Matt Rule's favorite bonding moments together. And I'll try, do we have time for me to try to get a quick story in?
Sure.
So me and Matt, when we were at Western Carolina together, I was the defense coordinator. He was the linebackers coach. Matt got a wild hair that we should run a marathon. Both of us were college linebackers. We don't need to be running marathons. But he was like, let's figure out how to run a marathon. So we trained to run a marathon. Well, we were going to do the same one, the College Football Hall of Fame marathon in South Bend, Indiana, back when it was there. Well, like 2 weeks before, Matt had something, he couldn't go do that one anymore. So I go up to South Bend to run 26.2 miles, and Matt wrote me a letter. And he said, do not open this letter until you're at mile 20. Now, during our training, we never ran past 18 miles. 18 miles was our cutoff, and we were going to just find a way to fight through the last 8 when it was game day. So Matt wrote me a letter, and so I'm running the race, and then mile 10, I'm starting to think about the letter because it's starting to be hard. Mile 15, I'm starting to think about the letter because it's starting to be really hard. But he said, don't open it until mile 20. And well, from mile 15 to 20, I start thinking about all the things that are going to be in this letter. How much he loves me, how much we've been through together, how much I mean to him. All of these things I'm putting in my mind that this letter is about to unfold about our deep, loving friendship that we have together. So I get to mile 20, and I'm about to break. Like, it's hard. Like, once you get past, it's hard.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I finally get to read this heartfelt, loving letter. And can I say cuss words on this show?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So mile 20, I stopped for a second because I got to get ready to read this long letter. It's 4 words. Finish the fucking race. So I told
Thought
that
it was going to be
story.
something like that. Yeah.
So I told the story to the team and kind of built it up throughout the week. And then they did it to their credit. And I still never forget, this is one of my proudest moments as a friend. After the game, I called Matt on my cell phone. And when we went into the locker room to celebrate, I wanted Matt to be in that room with us. And so I just remember the guys passing the phone around. Matt's going through it, but we're going to a bowl because of the culture that Matt had continued and built and all those things. And I just wanted to make sure that he knew how much he meant to all of us, how much he meant to me. And that was a pretty special moment.
That's a cool story.
Yep.
I'm not surprised to hear if it was short and sweet. That's great.
Yes.
That second and final season at Temple, you guys go 8-5. The start wasn't ideal. You guys start off 0-2, lose to Nova, lose to Buffalo. Then you go down to Maryland and rout them. Anthony Russo breaks out. Sean Bradley had that big 78-yard interception return. That helped you guys get on track to eventually be 2-2. And then you went 6-2 the rest of the way. What other memories and moments jump out to you from that season?
I mean, there was so much. I mean, the great players, the great, I think we won 7 of the last 8. We go down to UCF on a Thursday night Halloween ESPN game, and I think it's a 3-point game.
Mm-hmm.
Russo fakes a field goal for a touchdown early in the game, and it just was a shootout with their high-powered offense, and Russo and the guys doing a great job too. But just the belief, staying together the whole way through was amazing. All of the single digits had their moments of leadership. The Navy game in Annapolis where we come back in the second half
Yeah.
and win that one. There are so many that are just so special, but just the moments together. Ed Foley, before the games with his, Ed Foley-ness,
Mm-hmm.
with the special teams meetings and all those kind of things. It was just a special time. And, and I still think if, I think we would have won the bowl game if I hadn't have been a knucklehead. But it is what it is now.
But that's something that always gets debated with not just you, but every coach, right? It's like, do you stay for the bowl game? Do you leave? And like, that's the human part of it, where it's like, if you don't go, the fan base that you're going to says that you're not taking the job seriously enough, and you got to get started on signing day. But then if you leave, the program that you're leaving behind criticizes you. There's kind of, how caught in the middle are you there as a human being in that
It
situation?
is. And then too, just the players, there's some players that no matter what understand.
Mm-hmm.
There's other players that no matter what are not going to understand. And then there's going to be I don't know if at times if it's fair to the player,
Mm-hmm.
because there's some guys on the team that are, yeah, whatever. I'm glad he's staying. There's other guys on the team that are like, well, he's leaving us. Why is he still here? Kind of deal. So it's just, I I don't know that there's a right answer, but I
Mm-hmm.
do understand the dilemma on both ends.
If you're willing to talk about this, as you start getting close to the end of that second season, were there other offers that you said no to before you said yes to Georgia Tech, or was Georgia Tech always? And you kind of covered this earlier, but like, was that the one where you're like, if I get that one, that's gonna be hard to turn down to go home?
So there were the thing that I'm always very cautious about
Right.
is talking about jobs that I didn't take because somebody did take that job. And I
Yeah.
never want anybody to feel like they were the second choice or the third
Yeah.
choice,
That's fair.
that kind of deal.
That's
So,
fair.
but the Georgia Tech one was not the only one.
Hmm.
So there was interest in suitors, and it's all credit to the Temple players that played so good and did such a tremendous job representing the university that even gave me the opportunity. And that's the same for all these coaches that are out there advancing and those kind of things too.
What is the mix of emotions that you feel when you go on? Like I said earlier, Al had to go through this. He things eventually didn't work out at Miami. Again, Matt succeeded at Baylor, but he got fired in the NFL.
Right.
You got fired at Georgia Tech. When you leave for that next job, whether it's the next job or two jobs down the line, again, nobody can really fault you for taking it. When it doesn't work out, is it sobering? Is it humbling? Is it just you kind of just say this is what it is? If you had to express that to a fan, what's it like? Because every coach goes through it.
So the interesting piece is, and I will not get emotional,
Hmm.
even though it's going to be hard not to, but
Hmm.
there are times that even when I was at Georgia Tech or even since then, that I still feel stuck in my home in North Philly at that moment
Hmm.
deciding.
Hmm.
And at times deciding I'm not going, and
Hmm.
then the ultimate call that I am going to go.
Hmm.
And sometimes I just, you wish you could go back in time and have the resolve to do, make a different decision.
Hmm.
But that was, sadly, those emotions happened uh, even while I was at Georgia Tech. Like I would still, so it's not like buyer's remorse. It was a genuine feeling of, I really loved that place. I really loved our time there. I really love those players and that team and the culture. And regardless of how the next job was unfolding, positively or negatively, I still had those feelings and longing for, a time that can never be again. I
I
guess
think,
I'm getting older and I'm getting more sentimental,
yeah.
but there's like even when you think about your childhood home, well, you can't ever go back. because that doesn't exist anymore, you know, and it's just the mental gymnastics of, and I had to go through it, you know, after you get fired, you know, you've got a window that, you know, you got to figure out, are you going to get bitter or are you going to learn from it? And it's probably taken me a little bit longer because I had the other added weight of my love of Temple that compounds all of the emotions and the feelings, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And then what we haven't even covered yet is your first year at Georgia Tech. You come here and you gotta play Temple, and you guys
That
lost. That was the
sucked.
first season. Like, were you even battling at the risk of, like, I feel like if I ask you this question, you say, yeah, I was dealing with it then, and you got Tech fans on you saying, oh, he wasn't focused on the game. But like you come back that, I mean, it was for that first season and you play here.
Yep.
What was that like?
That sucked.
Yeah.
If we're being honest, that sucked. And
Hmm.
like I still remember, um, you know, and I think that for a while, and I don't know this is just things that I've been told, that Al left, those kids would have loved to have been able to play against
Hmm.
Al. Matt left. There's some kids that would have loved to play against Matt. Well, this is a 12-year, 10-year, probably 12. And then now it's getting to happen.
Hmm.
And in pregame warmups, I still remember looking across the 50, like Sean Bradley and I had a, you know, special moment pregame warmups. But it was hard because here's a group of guys that I'm just getting to know. There's another group of guys that I have a 3-year relationship with and love them with every fiber of my being. And, you know, trying to, during the pregame, provide distance, you know, because I can't go hug every Temple player that I want to,
Right.
because then the Georgia Tech players are going to look at me sideways,
Yep.
you know. So it was, and then the Temple players were trying to not look at me because they want to go and win the game.
Yeah.
And I still remember after the game, the line of hugs that I got post game will mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
And there were, when I got done with the, you know, going to the locker room, going and doing press and all that kind of stuff. And me and my wife still talk about this a lot. There were 3 players, Temple players, out by our bus waiting on us. And I won't tell who they were because there was emotions. And then obviously when Jennifer and I saw them, just, I mean, it was like, those are young men that we love so much. They'd been to our house. They'd been around Astrid when she was taking her first steps, all those things.
Hmm.
Um, but getting to know that, okay, we just battled against each other, water under the bridge, and we're, you know, able to love and hug and all those kind of things. It was special. And then I think too, there's certain guys that I know it's been a little harder. Time has helped heal,
Hmm.
um, and just little comments on Instagram or little comments on social media that are positive and loving. And this road trip, you know, my wife does this more than I do, but she'll go through a lot of times and see who liked certain things. And then she'll say, hey, did you see such and such like this one?
Hmm.
Did you see such and such commented on this one? And those kind of things have been, you know, I don't want to say what, you know, it's just been really, really positive.
So Temple went through this period where, and I think people on the outside looking in used to say this, like from the time that Bill Bradshaw hired Al Golden, and again, I think it's, of course, I'm biased because I've been covering the program, and we're sitting here talking about Temple, one of the greatest modern day college football turnarounds. And Al was the right hire. Then
Yeah.
Steve Adazio did his part. Then Matt did his part. Then you did your part. And then people would say, how often can they keep making the right hire? There's going to be a margin of error at some point. So then you move along, then the Manny Diaz thing happens.
Right.
Most bizarre thing I've ever covered,
Yep.
and never thought I'd see something like that happen. They pivot
Which,
to, yeah.
which I think was a good hire.
Oh
And
yeah,
I hate, I
yeah, oh
hate,
yeah.
I hate how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But when it happened, I co-signed it
Oh yeah,
because I thought Manny would be right in the line of what we had done.
sure. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was a good hire. And again, I say this to fans sometimes, and I think there's this mistake sometimes of someone will say, they got to go out and get someone who wants to be here for the rest of their life. I'm like, NFL coaches don't stay here for the rest of their life. Nick Saban has left. You have to just go get the best guy. So I agree. It was a good hire. Then Manny leaves, goes back to Miami. They pivot, they turn to Rod Carey. Rod has the one good season, then COVID happens, and it went downhill. It was such a bizarre thing, and the program is still recovering from it. Now,
Sure.
KC seems to have things trending in the right direction, but
Right.
you're down at Georgia Tech. You're already feeling like you've illustrated here all this mix of emotions. What was your view of just watching that unfold? Like, because it was just a bizarre time.
Right. And again, I have a hard time talking about another coach or
Sure.
something that I don't really know
Hmm.
all the inner workings of what happened. I do know this, regardless of the personality fit, the Midwest to North Philly, that whole thing. I don't know, and I can't speak to that. But I do know that the COVID, every single program handled it different.
Yeah.
And the longer I go, and some people act like it never even happened.
Hmm.
It happened,
Hmm.
and it was a real impact, and it impacted every single program differently because the protocols that happened at different places were all over the map.
Yeah.
There's some places that I know firsthand it didn't exist,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
then we lived in Atlanta. We were 1.5 miles from the CDC.
Hmm.
So it really existed for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Like it was, I mean, I didn't meet as a team for 18 months to almost 2 years
Yeah.
because of protocols.
Hmm.
So I don't know all the things that happened, you know, in North Philly during COVID. And then the following season with super seniors, how that impacted. So again, I don't want to make excuses for Rod because I don't know, but
Hmm.
I just, that time was so different for every single program. Like we went into the year that everybody got super seniors
Yeah.
and some teams had 15, 14, 17, 19. We had one and he didn't even play. That's different,
Hmm.
you know? And so I don't know the inner workings of what happened with Rod and Stan and all that kind of stuff.
Funny, you and Stan were like two ships passing in the night. You're leaving South Carolina. He's on their staff now. Did you guys ever connect and talk Temple
Yes.
stuff?
Yep. So, and I even came up. I snuck into the building. So the first year that I decided I'm going to sit out and just kind of be a girl dad and kind of heal and all those kind of things, I was exploring media opportunities because I was getting presented with a lot. So I was trying to figure out: do I want to coach again? Do I want to do the media? What do I want to do? And so I snuck up to Philly. So I drove up to Philly, snuck in the building. Chris Wiesahan was still here. So I saw him. Stan was really nice. I saw him. And then I went up to hang out with Kevin Nagandi
Hmm.
on the not college game day, the college football live set.
Yeah,
And so I hung out. I spent the entire day with Booger and Kevin Nagandi
that was
on
cool.
the set just to kind of see what this whole environment was like because it's always looked cool.
Hmm.
But let me go see if it really is as cool as I think it is.
Hmm.
So I did that whole exploration. So I went up there to see him. Then I went and had some homemade pizza with Vinny Sinagra up in Connecticut
That's cool.
or Rhode Island, excuse me.
Another kind of like tough moment for you, or interesting moment, comes in your career after the 2024 season. You're a defensive coordinator at North Carolina. Your defense produces 41 sacks. You're tied for the sixth best mark in the
Yep.
nation. But then Mac Brown gets fired. Now the Bill Belichick era comes in at North Carolina, which has been interesting to say the least. What
Right.
was it like to go through that?
So, and the interesting thing with that, and again, I won't talk about that process, but the jobs that I had offered at the end of the 23 season, pretty good jobs, and just the love and respect that I had for Mac Brown,
Hmm.
because that entire season in 22, after I got let go, Mac Brown was a constant presence in my life. Like everybody sends you I got flooded with, 800 texts and they're giving you all the excuses why Georgia Tech messed up and how it was so hard. They give you to make you feel better.
Hmm.
And I enjoyed getting to feel better, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
once they
sure.
send those texts, then they go back to their, daily grind and their
Yeah.
coaching and all those things. Mac Brown was one of the first to text me. Then the next week, Mac Brown texts me. Then the
Hmm.
next week, Mac Brown texts me. He
Hmm.
doesn't have to do that.
Yeah.
And so when I was, deciding where I wanted to go next, after I had crossed off the media for that time, Jennifer's family is an hour and 15 from here.
Mm-hmm.
It just made, I get to go work for another Hall of Famer. North Carolina is a great place, close to Jennifer's family.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made a lot of sense. But it was, the part of the reason, John, that I went on the road trip that I did was kind of to fall back in love with the game, because the things that I'd seen for the first 20 something years of my coaching career, as I was doing this and college football was the way it was, it was I really only saw the positives of everything. All for one for all, staffs being together, everybody bonding, everybody working toward a common goal. And then there just, for whatever reason, I saw some things in the last 6 years that I'm just like, that's not how I was raised to be,
Yeah.
in the game or whatever. And I just want to be around people that, are in it for the kids, are in it for the love of the game. And I got to experience that, relive it from places I'd been in, great memories, but also see it in action at places that I went to. And 10th and Diamond being one of them. What I
Yeah.
saw when I went there to see Casey was life affirming and very positive.
You have time for a couple more? How
Sure.
you doing on your schedule? Yeah, I wasn't sure when you
I'm
need to go pick up your daughter.
I'm semi-retired, John. I'm good. Whatever. Let's go.
I probably asked you about him when you were here, but I got to ask you. I'm sitting here in Philadelphia, and the guy's retired now. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about coaching Fletcher Cox. I
Yeah.
remember during that 2017 season, I went down to the Eagles Broncos game. Had no idea that was going to be Super Bowl season. I got to go in the locker room, talk to Fletch about you. What was it like coaching him at the time?
Right. So here's my favorite Fletcher Cox story. Thursdays, which is the day you kind of go lighter versus the scout
Yeah.
team, don't wear a lot of pads, whatever. We could not practice Fletcher Cox on Thursdays because the scout team offense quite literally would not be able to get a playoff if Fletcher Cox was out there practicing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if it was intentional on his part just to destroy every one of the kids, or if that's just, I mean, I think it's just how he's wired.
Yeah.
Like he is just, such a competitor, such relentless effort, all those kind of things. That he's one of my all-time favorites, and I think Philadelphia's one as well. And when I went back to Starkville, Mississippi, one of my first memories. So there's a brand new, beautiful facility, but their social media department is in where our old weight room used to be, where our old indoor kind of grungy,
Mhm.
very similar to how Temple is. And I walked into that weight room and I had vivid memories, visceral memories of Fletcher Cox attacking workouts,
Mhm.
pushing his teammates, having such a high standard that it was just palpable. And that was the first thing I thought of when I walked in, that was of Fletcher Cox.
Mhm.
And I think another one who I'm uber close with, and I was texting with him today, is Big Play Slay.
Yeah.
And I think he's a beloved figure
Yeah.
in Philadelphia. And he will tell
Yeah.
you to this day, the one that gave him his nickname was this kid right here.
Yeah. You beat me. Yeah. I was going to ask you about that too.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So I was recruiting him in Itawamba Community College, and he got there, and the Jim Thorpe Award winner was the corner on the other side. So the best DB in college football, and Darius Slay was on this side. And so I just started calling him Big Play Slay,
Mhm.
and it started happening more. I mean, he was always a great player. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say the nickname is the reason,
Yeah.
but just that mentality of being Big Play Slay, I think I mean, he's just such a energetic, personable, great interview, great soundbite, but
Mhm.
he's always so supportive of other people. I think that's when I think of Darius Slay, I think of somebody that elevates others that are around him at such a high level.
I covered the team years and years ago before I came back here to work at Temple, so I didn't cover his career, but yeah, it became part of his personality where it's like don't call me Darius, call me Slay,
Yes.
and that
Yep.
became part of who he was. Just a couple more for you here, Jeff, and again, I really really appreciate your time. What do you think? And I know this is like a multifaceted question to answer, especially when now you can step back from it and maybe you get back into the game at some point. What do you think of the state of the game today between rev share, between NIL, between budgets, and talk of the SEC breaking all? I mean, it's
Right.
completely different than it was when you first got involved, and completely different than it was maybe 5 years ago.
Right. It's Shane. I think obviously there needs to be a standard and a set. Here's what we can do within the game. Um, but then you say that, and then Why does it need to be that when coaches can make unlimited?
Mm-hmm.
They can have ridiculous salaries at this school, but not at this school.
Mm-hmm.
And where does the playing field, why are we, legislating the players, but not legislating the coaches? I hear that dynamic as well. But I think the Josh Pate said it best when you think about the game and loving the game. Transfer portal, NIL, this player making this amount of money, this coach making this amount of money, all those kind of things. 4th and 1, 30 seconds left, LSU Clemson, to whatever, Saturday or Sunday, whenever they play a week from now. Are you thinking about any of those things? And I would think the common answer would be no. You're just glad that college football is on. I think that is a thing that I've learned over the last 3 weeks of just going around and seeing ball. I will take this one point, though. I think a lot of coaches are using the fact that we're paying players, using the fact that players can enter the portal or go two-way street, are using it as a crutch to not develop genuine relationships, to not pour their heart and soul into connecting with the player, and are kind of using it as a crutch to have transactional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just the role I was in last year at South Carolina was so awesome for me. And internally, I was called the senior defensive guru.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it says on the website is fine. But I was the senior defensive guru in that building. Anyway, those players, even though some are making millions, hundreds of thousands, whatever, they still want to be coached. They still want to be cared for. They still want to have a trusted adult that has their best interest at heart, and they're seeking it. Now, what experience will tell you is they'll learn there aren't a lot, or there's more that you shouldn't trust, but they're seeking men or adults that are in the building that they can truly listen to, talk to, build a relationship with, and somebody that'll tell them the truth.
Yeah.
So I took that upon me as being, a little bit older, and I didn't have all the pressure of coaching a position or coaching the calling the game, so I could build real relationships with them. And, the closer I got, I could tell them the truth about certain things, when a lot of coaches, I'm not saying at South Carolina they did, but around the country, shy away from real relationships, real conversations that are anything other than transactional. And I don't think it has to be that way.
What is next for you, Geoff? Are you just really taking it's such a coaching philosophy, one game at a time, one step at a time, stacking days? Are you doing that now in your personal life? Do you want to get back into coaching, or are you literally just seeing what hits you from week to week?
So I'm genuinely enjoying being a girl dad.
Yeah.
Like our daughter's 10 years old now, and
Mhm.
she's all into
Yeah.
horses and
Mhm.
dance. And I love taking her to school. I love picking her up. I love taking her to her horse lessons. All of those things is phenomenal. The coaching part, the offers and the opportunities will continue to come. And there's certain places that I went on the road trip, and I'm like, I got to get back in this tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Other places I'm like, I kind of like being so it just
Yeah.
depends the vibe or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the other piece that has happened, and it's been happening for the last 3 or 4 years, is the media opportunities
Yeah.
continue to present themselves. So just the figuring out how I would want to enter that space, and that kind of thing, I'm still trying to, come to the best conclusion of how best to give back to the game, because the game has given so much to me.
Mm-hmm.
How can I give back to it? And the other thing, John, that's happened is there used to be 10 coaches on a coaching staff.
Yeah.
And there'd be a DFO and a director of high school personnel, whatever, and the head coach. So
Mm-hmm.
staffs were very small. And there'd be one person in charge of recruiting. Now I go to places, they have 6 DB coaches. They have 12 guys. No, more than that. There's 12 to 15 guys coaching on each side of the ball. Then they have scouting departments of 20 plus. And so as I go around and I talk to all the young coaches and even some of the older coaches that have been in it for a while, how do they advance in the profession? Because back when I was coming up, it was as long as you did a good job, you could ascend, and because there weren't a ton of slots, just be really good and you're going to get a break and get an opportunity, and then you had to produce. Now that metric is all over the place. And how do you go from being defensive analyst at Maryland to then being a head coach at the University of North Carolina? That's hard in this landscape. And so trying to figure out how to help, or how do you go from being the recruiting assistant at Penn State to being the GM at Texas Tech? That's hard. There's now, 1,000 of those people that are just like you. And so trying to figure out a way that I can give back to the game in that way is percolating as well. Geoff, there's a lot, John. There's a lot going on, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Geoff, I'm going to let you go. This was so much fun. Glad we got to catch up. Hopefully we can do this again. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yep. And anytime you want me to come on and talk Temple football,
let's do it. We'll do it again this season. Thanks, Geoff.